Good morning, once again from Maryland Business Roundtable for Education. I am Tashi Williams. I am the program coordinator for Next Generation Scholars at Wicomico County High School in Wicomico County, Maryland. And thank you guys once again for joining us for our A Way to Be at Home series. And just wanted to once again thank you guys so much for all the support that you guys have been giving us. We've had a lot of viewers, and I know between myself and all the rest of the coordinators who have been participating in this, we really appreciate it. And please feel free to share this information and share this webpage with your friends. This week, I remember last week we left off on what the college recruiting process looks like between high school and college. So I mentioned last week that there are specific things that college recruiters are looking for. And ironically enough, is you being a good athlete is probably maybe 3, 4, maybe even 5 on that list. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about this today and what exactly are they looking for. So if they're not just looking for that, what else are they looking for? So I'll backtrack a little bit. And when I say that they're looking for something specific, and you being an athlete isn't the most important. What I will say is that obviously you being an athlete is very important, but by the time that these college recruiters come to your school, by the time they come to your home and meet your family and all of that, they've already seen you perform. They've seen you through film. They've seen you. Huddle is a big thing right now that a lot of people have access to. And so if your coaches share that with these college recruiters, so they have seen you play, and they've probably seen film from your sophomore year, your junior year, your senior year. So they've seen that already. So you can kind of take that out of the equation, right? They already know that you're an athlete. So that's not their biggest concern. So what are their biggest concerns, and what are those specific things that they're looking for? Number one, and it's always going to be number one, what kind of student are you? What is your GPA? What are your ACT or SAT test scores? This is going to be huge. There is no way that you could disqualify yourself quicker from any college recruiter than to not be in good academic standings. There's not a lot they can do, at that point. So if you're coming in and you just finish your season, and you go into the second semester and you're looking at a 1.8 or a 2.1 or a 2.2, you're going to make it very easy for these college recruiters to make their decision. It's just not safe. It's not safe. And I'm going to get into why that's not safe here in a second. So academics, GPA, always keep it high. I know where I coach at the Parkside High School, we always tell our kids to strive for at least a solid 3.0, especially if they're trying to get recruited. Secondly, character. What kind of individual are you? Okay. How do you carry yourself in these classrooms? How do you carry yourselves in the hallways? How do you carry yourself out in the community? All right. Understand that these college recruiters and these colleges, it's a business, okay? And they have to make sure that they're bringing in the best employees and the most dependable employees that they possibly can. The employees being these student athletes. All right. So you need to make sure that you always carry yourself accordingly. And another thing, when I say carry yourself accordingly, another big thing right now is social media. Okay. Make sure you're very careful of the content you post. A lot of these young student athletes, they do not have private settings. So everything is public. And one of the first things that college recruiters will do to find out about your character is check your Facebook page, your Instagram, and your Twitter. Okay? They want to make sure that they are making the best investment that they possibly can make. Okay? The last thing is, what kind of teammate are you? All right? So are you the kind of teammate who's going to go out there day to day, give it your all, influence and pick up and motivate your other teammates? Or are you going to be the kind of teammate who is just kind of all about you? You're going to do the bare minimum. You are going to just think about self. You show up to practice when you want to. Huge no-no. Okay. There Everyone who goes to college, and especially scholarship athletes, make no mistake that everyone who is at that college or university, they are the best and were the best athletes on their high school team. So, hate to bust your bubble, but you are nothing exceptional in the eyes of the coaches, because everyone is you. Everyone was the best on their team. Okay. So these are different ways that you can start looking at and start thinking about what you need to do to make sure that you separate yourself from the competition. Because like I said, once again, make no mistake, this is a competition in regard to getting recruited. So what do? Separate yourself academically. Make sure that it's going to be a non-issue. Make sure you keep your GPA high. Make sure you work as hard as you can on your ACT and SAT scores. Okay. Secondly, separate yourself in regards to character. Make sure that you are carrying yourself accordingly. Make sure you're carrying yourself as proper young men and proper young ladies, so they can never come back and say, well, I don't know about this. I heard this from their teacher. They were suspended this many times. They had this many absences. Separate yourself as far as character. And thirdly, separate yourself as a teammate. Okay. Make sure that you're going out there. Make sure you're working as hard as you possibly can. Make sure you're supporting your teammates. Make sure you're picking people up on your team as opposed to breaking them down. Okay. These are huge things that college recruiters are looking for. And like I said, don't ever forget, and I don't say this to mean that your college coaches don't care about you as individuals, but at the end of the day, college athletics is a business. Okay. If they're not bringing in quality athletes, if they're bringing in people who are going to fail out of college, and if they're bringing in, students who are going to, not meet the requirements as far as being a good teammate, then they're not going to be a coaching staff for much longer. They will get removed just like anything else, right? You have to bring in the best product, and you are that product. So like I said, these student athletes, it's not a situation to where, like I said, the coaches don't care about you, but at the same time, they are running a business. Okay, you are that product, and they are going to make sure that they're going to make the best investments possible, and you can separate yourself by doing those things that I just mentioned. I got a question here from Mrs. Nona Carroll. It says, any tips you might have for student athletes to separate themselves outside of school? And I think I just kind of mentioned that. Should they be involved in travel teams, things like that? So travel teams, I think, is great. Especially, obviously for things like football, you don't really have things like that. But for things like softball, things like baseball, things like soccer, things like lacrosse, there are multiple travel teams. One thing that I will always be careful, and this is a huge kind of contention going on in sports, should student athletes really kind of just be a part of one thing? And I would think that consensus now, it would be no. And I'm not saying this meaning that, if one person just focuses on baseball, will they go along and not get a scholarship ultimately in baseball? Because that does happen, obviously. But what we I know, and a lot of local coaches do, we ask that our kids play as many things as they possibly can, many sports as they possibly can. So I'm a football coach. So obviously there are no traveling football coaches or football teams. There are no teams or clubs or anything like that. So with football, we ask them to wrestle. We ask them to play basketball. And because that helps on certain skills, right? So wrestling helps with leverage for football players. Basketball helps with footwork. So we just ask our kids to do as many things as they can possibly do. Try not to pigeonhole yourselves. Some young student athletes, they do it because that's where their interest lies, and I totally get that. And that there's nothing wrong with that. But in my personal opinion, if you have interest in something else, if you want to play, let's say, softball and basketball, then, and you can't play basketball because your travel team, then, I would tell my son or daughter, or I would say, give it a shot, try both, and if you still want to come back to one of those sports, then you can do that. So that's kind of my personal opinion, and like I said, my opinion, I am not there's no way I'm like, okay, what I just take what I say and just kind of run with it. Use your best judgment, my personal opinions on things like that. Thank you guys once again for joining me. Please join me next week again for Coach Tashi on Tuesday, when we're going to be talking about how many scholarships for student athletes coming out of high school are actually available. I think some young people and some parents even think that, okay, this college, they like my kid, they're going to offer him a scholarship. That's not always the case. It doesn't always work like that. There's a certain number of scholarships only that these colleges and universities can provide. So once again, thank you guys so much for joining me for Coach Tashi on Tuesday. Look forward to speaking with you guys and chatting with you guys next week. In the meantime, you guys make sure to be safe, continue to practice social distancing, and take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.